Hi, this is Dr. Ann Teixeira. I'm an ASHA certified speech language therapist and doctor of audiology. Here at Sound Shapers, our goal is to be a source for parents who are looking to help their children who may have speech, language, and/or hearing difficulties. Today we're going to talk about what to do if you have concerns about your child's speech, language, or hearing. One of the first things that you can do if you're concerned that your child might have a speech or language delay is to look at some communication or developmental milestones. You'll want to go to a reputable source. I would recommend the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association. Their communication milestones checklists are for children between the age of 0 to 5. You can look at skills in the areas of speech, language, hearing, and swallowing. And the norms that are listed are the age at which we would expect 75% of American English-speaking children to have mastered those skills. I'm going to put a link to those below this video, so go ahead and check them out there. I often get asked, what do I do if I think my child has a problem? I'm going to break this up for us today into a couple of sections. We're going to start with if your child is a newborn through 3 years of age, what do you do? One of the most common things that I hear from parents is that they talk to their pediatrician. That's fine. That's an okay thing to do. It's pretty normal, pretty common. I'm going to be very honest on this channel with my own biases though. Far too many pediatricians over my experience as a speech language pathologist have told parents it's okay to wait. My experience as a speech language pathologist and audiologist is that it's never too early to start helping. And that is our goal. So we're going to move on beyond talking to your pediatrician. What can you do if you're really concerned that your child is struggling? Most states have what's called early intervention programs. That's a program for children from 0 to 3 years of age. I'm going to talk about Arizona because that's where I'm located. We have the Arizona Early Intervention Program. As a parent, you can refer your child to this program. So whatever state you're in, get out your phone, your computer, look up, how do I access early intervention in my state? You'll find a phone number, you'll find directions. In Arizona, you call a phone number, you explain your concern, and you'll be scheduled within a couple of weeks to have an evaluation. Now, after that evaluation, if your child is looking significantly below what's considered average for a child developmentally at your child's age, you'll be referred to the early intervention program. So you'll move forward with services at that time. The next age group that we're going to talk about are our preschoolers, those kiddos between the ages of 3 to 5. Services in that age group are delivered through preschool programs, typically through your local school district. So if you have a 3 to 5 year old child and you're concerned that their speech and language skills might be delayed or might look different from other children that you know, from your own other children, if they're struggling, look up your local school district. Call them and tell them that you would like access to a screening and potentially testing for a possible speech and language delay. Typically, that will look like a screening first, which is just kind of looking at the very top of things. Does your child look like they're passing the basic things expected at that age, or are they struggling in some areas? And in most cases, they'll do a screening that involves not just speech and language, but also physical development, social skill development, and other areas of development for your child. If something's identified in the screening, they'll move forward to an evaluation. And at that point, once an evaluation is done, that team will sit down with you and they'll review, how did your child do? How are they doing in comparison to the expectations for a child of that age? Do they have recommendations for you at home? Do they feel like your child needs services? And then at that point, you would start talking about, well, what is that process? And we're not going to get into all of that process today. We're just trying to get you started on the road there. If your child is older, if your child has already entered kindergarten, basically the school system, our K through 12 school system, the process starts to look a little bit different. Sometimes it'll start with the teacher who has concerns, but quite often it's still the parent. And as a speech pathologist and an audiologist who's worked with children for many years, I still remember the advice of some professors in grad school. So I'm not going to say how many years ago, but it was quite some time ago. And they said, trust the parents, trust mom, trust dad. If mom or dad has a concern, if you have a gut level concern about your child, there is never any harm in pursuing testing, asking questions, looking for some advice from experts in different developmental areas to find out if your concerns are warranted or not warranted. Sometimes it's as important to know that your concerns are not warranted as it is that they might be warranted and your child needs a service. So either way, it's a win-win. There's not a lose in that equation as far as I'm concerned based on my experience. So if your child is school age, the first person to go to is the teacher. Express your concerns to the teacher. Ask what they're seeing in the classroom, and then request a formal screening. That's typically the start of the process. We're only going to talk about speech and language today. I'm not going to talk about physical therapy, occupational therapy, all the other special education. We're just going to focus here on the speech and language. Express your concerns, ask for a screening. Once the speech pathologist in your school has completed the screening, they'll get back with you to let you know, hey, I think things are looking okay. Don't be afraid to ask them, well, what about my concerns? What can I do to help my child move forward? When can we come back for another screening if I continue to have concerns? Sometimes things don't show up right away. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to come back if needed. If the speech language pathologist sees some concerns that they think warrant an evaluation, now you're entering into the special education process in that school district, and things will start to look a little bit more, I don't want to say serious, but it's a little more formal would be a better way to put it. You will have a team meeting. That team should always have the teacher, your child's teacher. You should always be involved and be a part of that meeting. The speech pathologist should be a part of that meeting. And you'll always have an administrator. It might be the principal, it might be an assistant principal. That would be the smallest, what we would call special education team. And don't be thrown by the fact that we're saying special education. You might think, well, my child is just having some trouble with their grammar, or my child just has a trouble with their S sound. In the school system, speech and language services are provided under the big umbrella of special education services. So all of those federal laws, any state laws, anything applicable in the process is followed, whether it's a very mild issue or it's something more involved for a child. So coming back to that meeting, you'll have a meeting, you'll look at what is the information? Does it support needing to look further for your child and do an evaluation? If that answer is yes, and the team, which includes you, all agree, you'll sign paperwork and permission for that testing. After that testing is completed, you'll meet again. Now, again, it's important to remember this is a formal process in the schools, and as frustrating as it is, when we as parents want something for our child, we typically want it right now. In the schools, that doesn't happen. I'm not going to go, I'm not trying to make excuses. We have to deal in reality. Our speech pathologists in our schools are very often very busy folks, oftentimes with large caseloads, doing the best they can. There is a window of opportunity to pull children. There's a window of opportunity in the speech pathologist's day to be able to pull children for screening and testing. And federal law allows typically 60 days from the time you sign that you want your child tested to the process being completed and the team coming back and meeting again to look at those results. Now, it might not always be that long, and there are times where there are extensions for unforeseen reasons. But let's go with the typical. They have 60 days to get that testing done. You will come back and have a review. It's typically called a multidisciplinary review. Every school district, every state has their own little play on words for what it is, but you're going to have everybody come back to the table again and look at these results. And then the question is going to become, is there a delay? Is there a problem here for this child? If the answer is no, then again, you can ask your questions. How can I support my child at home? How can we support them more in the classroom? If the answer is yes, we think there's a problem, the question is, how do we as a team help your child to succeed at school? Because speech language pathology provided in a school setting is there under special education law to help your child succeed and access appropriately the education that's being offered in their classroom. So if everyone agrees there's a need, you'll come back and you'll have what's called an IEP meeting, or an individualized education plan. That plan is going to spell out what the goals are for your child, how those goals are going to be accomplished, who's going to be involved on the child's team. We'll get into that more in another video about exactly what an IEP is. Now there's another option here. I'm speaking mostly so far about state and educational options for services. There's also what we would call the private route or medical-based route, which would involve getting a referral from your pediatrician or your doctor, your family doctor, and looking for a private practice, and you can always access that. Some people have insurance that allows them to do that. Some people don't. Depends on everyone's own situation, what they want to do. If you were to go the private route and services were identified and you're covering them, either yourself paying for them or your insurance is covering them, you also want to access the educational route. So that's why we started there first. Because if you have private therapy for your child and your child has a need, the school district, your child's teacher, the school district, you want them to be aware of what your child's need is as well, so that they can be supporting that child again in accessing and succeeding in the classroom. I hope that this has helped you and given you a little bit of an overview of the options that are available for you as a parent if you have concerns about your child's speech and language development. It's so critical for not just their communication and interaction, but also for their education as they move forward. Our communication skills impact ability for children to have peer relationships, to make friends at school, to learn to read, to write. It's very important for their academics as well. So don't be afraid to ask for help. There's help out there, and hopefully this gets you started on your way. Thanks for tuning in.